older.
Good evening, everybody. We got that PowerPoint. Just before I start, a little word of warning. Actually, I'm going to need a couple of volunteers. So I'm just looking around for people to just step up and just help me out partway through this. I'll give you a shout when. Oh, right. Follow that slide. Islands in the sun, right, it's cold and it's dark and it's horrible in February in North Wales, so I thought I'd just take you to a warmer, more comfortable place. That's better. A tropical island, yeah, we all like tropical islands. And this is one such in Australia. However, all is not as it might appear to be in tropical paradise. The world's changing. Carbon dioxide emissions are a serious issue, and the islands of the world are not exempt from the issues that we're creating with these carbon emissions. I'd like a couple of volunteers now, please. Somebody could step up. I'm going to show you some role plays that I use in some of my work. To represent. This is the island of Vanuatu. Who would like to represent Vanuatu on the global stage?
Come on, Paul.
Thank you, Karen. Okay, so Vanuatu is a remote island in the Pacific. Some of you probably have heard of it. Here's another island. Anybody guess where this is? Close. Singapore, right? Right, would you like to represent Singapore? Right, and your task now, ladies and gentlemen, is to consider what the issues are in the light of global changes to climate and possibly other global changes into the environment for these islands. And what we need to do is to bring these issues to the attention of the United Nations. So I'd like you to consider, so I'm going to give you a fact sheet for Vanuatu and a fact sheet for Singapore. Thanks, Dave. And what the task is to create a demand that you would take to the climate change conference of the United Nations, such as similar to the one that took place in Durban towards the end of last year. So could you pause for thought for a second and see if you could create a demand that you could both agree on that would be suitable to take to the United Nations? Both agree.
Does anybody else want to volunteer?
Go for a demand. Go for a demand that you might not agree on. What would Singapore demand? I'll let them think about that for a moment. Right, while you're thinking about it, both of you, that's fine. Those islands are obviously radically different one from the other. What they have in common is that they're both members of the AOSIS. Do people know what AOSIS is? The Alliance of Small Island States. So this is an alliance which tries to bring together the different interests of these very, very different islands and to strengthen their recognition and their bargaining power on the global stage. Okay? So a number of impacts might be affecting Singapore. Just to give you an idea of the kind of data that I've just given them, the geography of these places is very different. So Vanuatu has high elevation, very dispersed population over a large number of islands, but a population which is probably very focused around the coastline. Singapore is, of course, much more densely populated, although, as I discovered, rather green. That about half of Singapore is covered with trees. So, different sets of issues. So, with global warming comes, for example, rises in sea level. So, you might want to pose a demand, and this is unfair to put these people on the spot, isn't it? Because normally you give people a little bit more time to think about these issues, right?
It's fine from this side.
So we're looking for things like, you know, and I do this online, right, with level 3 students at the Open University. So you get some sort of very high level discussion, which involves stuff like, okay, sorry, this is oh, it wasn't supposed to be humiliating. So this is the kind of debating chamber that, right, these people have to be able to come up with ideas to meet. Okay, so they've got to go into the United Nations and be able to come up with demands which make sense, and there'll be demands which relate to stuff like reducing carbon emissions, mitigating the impact of sea level rises, providing for loss of biodiversity, deforestation, providing for islands to sustain fresh water supplies in the face of saline seawater ingress into freshwater aquifers and so on.
I want that one. Because I haven't got much fresh water.
Karen
so
hasn't got
that's
much
what
fresh
I
water,
want.
so that's your issue. So you need some way of sustaining fresh water supplies. And some students might suggest things like they want aid for establishing desalination plants or something of that sort. So that might be one of the suggestions. Other suggestions are to do with dissemination of alternative sources of energy production and so on. Thanks very much, both of you, by the way. So this is about role play. So what I'm saying to you is role play works in a lot of different sets of circumstances. The work I do with the Open University involves quite a protracted role play. It involves giving people about 12 days to go away and think about it. So I'd give them that's very 12 seconds. so they go off and they find out some of the kind of data about population size, about geography, about economic issues, about environmental issues which face these island states, and then they have to get up there on their metaphoric soapbox in Moodle and start sending out messages to the chair and say, look, we demand this, we demand that. No, we don't agree with Singapore's demands because they've got oodles of money and we've hardly got any, this kind of stuff. And so, for example, and will these happen automatically? No, they won't. These are the kinds of statements that you end up making on when you have this kind of discussion. So, to what extent can you go for compensation when you're a wealthy small island that happens to be suffering from major impact of climate change, if you're emitting quite a lot of carbon as well? What about the USA? That USA exerts a lot of control globally. What about the Bretton Woods institutions? What about the United Nations? How does that all work? Get discussion going about issues of governance as well as environmental issues. So those are the kinds of discussions that you end up with. But of course, at other levels, you can have other completely different kinds of discussions. And these are the issues that my students typically identify: sea level rise, temperature rise, drought, extreme climate events, deforestation, etc., etc. And they come to these without any real prompting. They come to those by doing web searches and finding stuff out. So role play. It can be fun, it can be engaging, it can be instructive. It can also be quite hard to manage, as you've just been seeing. So it's actually not that straightforward. Do people here use role play in their teaching? There's some nodding heads. Maybe not enough, but I think it's a powerful tool. Some issues which you've got to think about: well, are you engaging everybody, or are you missing some people out? Are you excluding people just by the techniques you're using? Can you do it online, offline? I think online is great because people have time to think, and this is just exactly what I did with these two just now. If you do it online, people have got time to make up their minds what kind of points they want to make. If you're working online, you've got options. You can go synchronous, like we're doing now, or you can go asynchronous and give people a bit more time. So those are some of the thoughts about role play.
Is it a type of web quest?
It's not really a web quest in that there's no specific, maybe I haven't understood web quest right.
No.
There's no specific intention. The only intention is that you end up with a set of demands, 3 demands, which go to the United Nations, and you have to actually agree on those demands, and you agree by a consensual process. That's kind of the rules of engagement of the role play. And I'll just put the picture credits there because I always use Creative Commons pictures and I always attribute. I'm sorry, I meant to put this slide somewhere else. This is us. This is about us and the work we do at RSC Wales. I'll probably best put that later on because people need to know. And that's me.
Okay, thank you very much.